I'd like to welcome you back to the Traveling Investor 2-minute quick update. Tonight we're here to talk about the airlines and the $2 trillion coronavirus economic stimulus package that's making its way through Congress. It is Wednesday, March 26th. Have a few more details with regards to what looks like is going to be in that package when it finally does get passed as it relates to airlines and airline employees. CNN reports that there will be restrictions. It's about $25 billion in grants and $25 billion in loans is what they're reporting, a little over $50 billion total, which we were expecting that late last week on Friday, indications that it'd be a little over $50 billion. At that point in time, the reports indicated that would predominantly be loans without cash grants. Through pressure from the airlines themselves and from the union groups, that apparently has changed to around a half and half type of scenario between grants and loans. There are restrictions connected to that for airline employees. There are positive restrictions. They limit the ability to furlough or reduce pay until the end of September for any airlines that take these funds, that avail themselves of these funds. It's hard to think that any airline's not going to avail themselves of these funds given the cash flow pressure that they're under at this point in time. So for airline employees, you're able to rest a little bit easier, at least until the end of September. Hopefully by that point in time, we'll have a little bit better idea of the curve of coronavirus, whether it's going to extend later into the year than we would all like, or if potentially we could have a seasonal decrease in the transmission of the sickness, of the illness, and potentially on top of that, some effective drugs might be discovered, and then we can have a nice little V curve as it relates to decrease in demand for the airlines. The decrease has been very sharp. We don't expect the increase in demand to be quite as sharp, but it's potentially by the end of summer, if things trend in a positive manner, we may be in a position where there is enough demand to largely support the payroll and employees, 750,000 employees in the airlines across the country that the airlines contribute into the economy. Now, the airlines themselves are about 5% of GDP, so it's pretty important to keep these airlines running. There's been a few reports out there that have indicated without some sort of stimulus package specifically for the airlines that a very significant portion of airlines, including those who were in really good financial situation before this whole thing occurred, that those airlines would go out of business. So 5% of GDP is nothing to sneeze at. It's pretty important. Also, employee groups for airlines are generally represented by unions, generally compared to the broad market, have pretty good pay rates. The U.S. economy, of course, 70% of GDP is more or less represented by consumer spending. So it's important to keep people paid, to the extent that they can spend money back into the economy to keep the economy from collapsing. So that's been the idea behind this package that's been put together, and sort of a special treatment that airlines are getting within this package. For those of you who are in the airlines, the idea of no furloughs or pay cuts until the end of September is a welcome relief. Hopefully by that point in time, we'll have a little bit of a better idea with regards to what the curve of coronavirus is going to be. Is it going to start to trail off and people will start to want to get out and about after having been locked up in their houses for a long time? Economic uncertainty will wane a little bit, and so people will start buying tickets and going places. That's the hope. It's important for the economy. Obviously, it's important for individuals who work for the airlines. Recently, and I just talked about this on a previous video, there have been some sticking points as it relates to some of the unemployment language that is in this $2 trillion stimulus deal. The Republicans are a little concerned about language that would indicate that minimum wage or low wage employees would actually be making more in unemployment than they would being employed. So we're kind of on the 1 yard line, hoping to punch this thing in and get this money into the economy, but it appears as though they're going to have to work that out in the coming days. I don't foresee that there's going to be any effect to the provisions that are already in there for airline employees. I think those are going to be left untouched, or, Republicans want to rewrite the portions that have to do with unemployment that, Democrats may be able to negotiate something in exchange for that. If they do, it's predominantly going to be focused on worker rights and worker compensation, so that shouldn't affect adversely the airline employees. So hopefully we can get this thing punched through the goal line, and we can get some money in the economy. We can get some stability in workers, in this case particularly airline workers. We of course want stability for all workers, not just airline workers, but for those in the airline business, sleep easy. You have a little bit of a reprieve. We can all just hope that this thing will be resolved in the next month or two, and that demand will return so that we can all be gainfully employed, selling tickets and doing our job. So once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me on the 2 Minute Investor Special. Have a good night.